Okay, this should be fairly straightforward flight. So we're on the ground in Nagpur in India with the Douglas DC-6 and we're going to fly it, or attempt to fly it. It's a while since I've been in a DC-6. We're going to attempt to fly it to Kolkata. So let's go and have a little look at the route in Navigraph. So we're over here in Nagpur. And we're going to go VOR hopping basically without using GPS. So to prevent ourselves from cheating too much, we're going to turn off the aeroplane in both LittleNavMap and so we need to go map options. So we're going to turn off our track. Put that up there. So we're not going to see ourselves on the map. So we'll have to figure it out, which will make it a bit more fun. But before we get to that, we need to go and have a look at the aeroplane. So this is the Douglas DC-6. If you've not seen it in the simulator, it is by far the best historic aeroplane in the simulator, by quite some distance. And you can just see from how smooth it is, it's however they developed it, whatever black or dark magic they used to develop this aeroplane is incredible. Because yeah, inside the cockpit as well, there's a lot more detail than most of the others, but it is silky smooth. Wherever you look, it's very, very impressive. Okay, so yes, the DC-6, if you've not seen it before, it's a bit of a monster. It's a noisy, shaking hulk of an aeroplane, but it's great fun. So we're going to go and fire it up, basically. So Control 0 takes us over to the tablet. We want to make sure we've got the ground power unit. We have, which is good. So I'm working through my own checklist here. I'll put a link in once we're in cruise into the chat so everybody knows where I've got this from. So Control 6 takes us overhead. We're going to go and put the power source to ground power, which is over here. So that lights up. Oh, well, let me go and check the volume levels as well. Make sure. I'm going to put the aeroplane on loud so you get to hear everything. So battery and ground power has to go to on. So are you getting sounds? Yes, you are. So in lighting section, we can go and put the beacon lights are on, no smoking and seatbelt signs can go to on. The inverters can go to on or up. Engine instruments to normal or up. Now I've got to find half these switches. I can never remember where they are. So there's the engine instrument section in the middle. Engine instruments normal up. Where are we? There it is. See, I'm so rusty with this aeroplane, it's almost funny. Master, battery and gen section 1, 2, 3 and 4 to up, so that's here. Then Control 8 takes us to the panel. Cowl flaps can all go to wide open while we're getting the engines up and running, so we'll go and turn them all around. So if we go and look outside, you will see those are the cowl flaps around the outside of the engines. Set cabin pressurization. We're not going to be flying any great altitude. I'm going to stay low on purpose, so there's almost no point setting cabin pressurization. If we set flight for 5,000, the cabin will stay, I think it stays until about 8,000, doesn't it? Even higher than that, look, it kicks in at 9,000. but we're probably only going to be flying between 5 and 10,000 on the way, so we'll see. I'll set 5,000 initially. Okay, so radios. Go and turn on the various switches. We don't have to do that one. And I think that's it. We haven't got any other radio kit on board. Oh, we have actually. We've got the transponder down here, which can go to standby. Okay, so then we calibrate the altimeter. So it's showing just over 1,000 feet above sea level, and calibrate any gyros. I don't think I need calibrating, to be honest. So then on the pedestal, we are going to put all of the fuel selector levers, these are these ones, fully forwards. Then overhead, going to go and put the cabin heater master section, or cabin heater master to on. So that's this one here. Just to warm the cabin up a bit as soon as we get the engines running. So we're going to go and start the engines. So engine control levers, mixture controls to idle, cutoff. Trying to remember where everything is now. So I'm just reading my own notes. So there's the actual mixtures. So they're on idle cutoff. Propeller RPM control lever to forward. That's that one. And that is. And throttle levers to 10%. So let's give them a little bit across the board. So then we're going to go overhead and work through starting each engine. So we should be doing them in order 3, 4, 2, 1. So how this works is this panel here. So we go main fuel booster pump for engine number 3 first. And then, yeah, this is slightly wrong. I'm going to cheat slightly. So I'm going to go and change the mixture because we won't be able to dive around the cockpit fast enough to do it. So I'm going to go and put the mixtures on auto lean. Oh, actually, no, I think they go to auto rich on their own, don't they? Oh no, there is a stepping beyond that. Okay, we'll leave them there for the moment. So control 6. So pump number 3 is on. So we should just be able to then go start. Oh, we have to put the selector on first. Otherwise, it won't. This doesn't know which engine it's providing the electricity to spin up the flywheel. There we go.
3, 6, 9, 12.
So we'll leave that going. So the booster pump can come back off for that engine. Now it's up and running. And we can put the mixture to auto rich. Then back overhead, we go and do the next one. So engine number 4 next. So we select number 4. We start it. The count is for the blades.
6, 9, 12.
And we didn't quite get it. So let's stop that one and we'll go again. Oh, I didn't put the pump on, that's why. Okay, so engine number 4 is selected, so start.
3, 6, 9, 12.
There it goes. And then the pump can come back off as soon as it's started, and we can come back down. This is a real job to jump around the cockpit, to be honest, but it's good fun. Okay, so that goes to auto rich now. Go back overhead. change to engine number 2 next. So engine 2 is selected. Put the fuel boost pump on this time, remember to do it. And spin it up.
3, 6, 9, 12.
And you can hear that in the background. And you'll see the engine pick up as it warms up, because you can see the others are already running faster. See it spinning up? Because you'll see, if you were to go and watch the gauges, you'll see the needles flying around all over the place. So Control 5 brings us down here, and we can put that into auto rich, then back overhead, engine number 1. Take the boost pump off of engine number 2, engine number 1, boost pump on, and start.
3, 6, 9, 12.
Okay, so boost pump can come off, come back down here, put it onto auto rich. Engines are running. So the plain battery power source can go to away from ground to plain battery now. What's next? Ground power units are off, so back over on the tablet we can go and get rid of the ground power unit. And we are almost ready to taxi, but we're going to sit here for a little while. So we remove the gust lock, which removes a lock from the throttles and from the control surfaces. So we should find now we have access to controls. And we're going to go for 20 degrees flap for takeoff. That might be a bit much, but let's go and have a look down here. I think it's marked on the... Yeah, you can see it's engraved on the metal. 20, yeah, we're on 20 degrees. We've done the flaps. Landing lights to on. So they are up here, because it doesn't have taxi lights. So we want to extend them and have them on. We then have lights. How are we doing for noise? Shall I turn it down a bit now so you can hear me over it? So we need to go and... There is an engine run-up test, but we're going to be sitting here for a little while. So what we can do, I'll just show you the instruments so you can see everything shakes like anybody's business until the engines are up to speed. So if we gently increase, see it smooth same? So it's quite a complicated aeroplane to treat it well. You've got BMEP, you've got manifold pressure, you've got RPM, and you've got cylinder head temperatures, and you've also got oil pressure and fuel flow, and yeah, it's fun. There's water pressure as well. You can inject water into the engines to get more power. And it also has superchargers. So you can see there's the switches for them. So once we've got the engines up and running, actually we'll leave the cowl flaps wide open while we're sat here on the ground doing nothing. Let's just try and get it to 1500 RPM. Yeah, the shaking almost disappears as soon as you get the RPM over 1500. Okay. So we are going to taxi out to the runway. So let's go and have a look at where we are. Have we got a Navigraph plate for this one? I think we might have. So we are over here, and we're going to taxi out to Alpha. There's hardly any wind. So our first port of call will be the GDA VOR station, which is, let's get the information for it up, Gondia 11420. So let's go and tune in a nav1 to 11420. So let's have a look at these radios. I'm presuming this is nav and this is com, and this is going to be 1 and this is going to be 2. So 11420, wasn't it? And switch that to active. And I doubt we'll pick anything up just yet, but we can go and tune in the omni-bearing selector. So yeah, what's the range on that, by the way? 130 miles. So yeah, we'll be fine. So 69 degrees to get there, so we'll go and tune the omni-bearing selector to 69 degrees. And let's have a look outside of the aeroplane. So we're going to do a right turn, and then we'll be on runway 32. So we'll be taking off 32, and then we'll turn right for 70 degrees. Well, that's the plan anyway. And then I'll have to remember how to operate the autopilot on this thing. So there's a clutch, which is, let's just go and familiarise ourselves before we get into the air. There's the autopilot clutch there, where it grabs the cables basically. And then you've got the gyro pilot on. So I think you have to turn that on first, or you grab the cables, then turn this on. Then you've got altitude control. Once you've got that on, this wheel will control pitch. But while the gyro pilot is on, this controls turn. But it also has modes, if I remember correctly. Yeah, you've got gyro pilot mode, which we'll probably use today, to be honest. You've got localizer mode, so it can track a signal and follow the beam. Or you can just use heading mode and do dead reckoning along the way. Okay, let's go and taxi out then. So let's press, oops, F12, whoa. Started rolling. There we go. So let's press, well, it's got to stack quite a long way forwards in the cockpit, hasn't it? Let's scoot ourselves back a little bit. We may be doing an about turn here to get to the runway. Yeah. Yeah, I had no doubt you're going to get people in the comments today that are going to know this aeroplane inside out, and I will know that I'm going to probably overstress the engines at some point. But there is an automated flight engineer as well that can help us out. Yeah, that we've got not enough pressure going on now. So you play games with the engines in this thing all the time. So it's you make a decision. You either let the automated flight engineer get on with it, or you can do it yourself and have some fun and try to balance the needs of the aeroplane against what you're trying to do. Okay, I'm going to put the parking brake on for a moment while we just check a few things. So the transponder needs to go to Alt. Landing lights are already on. We don't need water injection. Position light goes to flash. So let me turn the head tracking off for a moment. So position lights are way up here somewhere. There we go. And then we're going to go to 4 degrees on all engines for the takeoff run. It says 3 degrees, but the book says 4 degrees, so we're going to go for 4. Pitot scoop heaters. I can never remember where this switch is. There's the cabin heaters. Feathering, blower. I've gone, oh there we go. Again, it's one of those things, once you use the airplane a lot, you just know instinctively where switches are. If you don't, you end up in this situation where I'm having to hunt for everything. Okay, so that's that done, so we can essentially take off. So we go, keep an eye on the manifold pressure, just not to overdo it basically. The weather's not great, is it? I'm gonna change our view. So we can rotate at 85 knots. So 70, 80, and pulling back gently. And we're in the air. So gear can come up. So just keep it stable for the moment. And we'll start a right turn. So we're looking for 70 degrees, weren't we? And start raising those flaps. Having to go by instruments because we can't really see anything out of the window at the moment. So we should have had the boost pumps on really, so I'm going to go and put them on now for the climb at least. If I can get to them. Oh, it's going to be a so-and-so, isn't it? I can't actually click on them. How are we doing for direction? Coming round, we're at 40 degrees. We're climbing far too steeply though. There we go. Okay, so we need to go and intercept that VOR. Or the course deviation needle. So I'm just going to fly it by hand for a while. It's just averaging over about 1200. So yes, let's have a look at the power. Manifold pressure 40 for the climb. So let's go and we're more or less there. We should be looking at RPM of 2400. we're a bit fast on the throttles, so this is where we have to try and get to this lever. It's a nightmare, isn't it, that the views don't really help you. So coming up towards 5,000 feet. Oh, I didn't put the DME on, did I? There we go. So we're tracking nav1, and you can see it counting down. Let's have a look from outside now. So we'll go a few more 1,000 feet, see if we can get above this cloud. We could have a play with the autopilot, couldn't we? So we switch it on, we pull that up to grab the controls, we pull up altitude control as well, and you will see the climb rate there, and we can control it by rolling the wheel here. Oh, if I got that the wrong way round. Oh, maybe that's altitude hold, sorry. So I want to turn that off, and then I get to control it with the wheel. There we go. So if I just look for a climb rate of, say, 1,000 feet a minute, that's plenty. And then we can concentrate on looking at the needles without flying the aeroplane all the time. Notice it's moving around. But we actually got a hell of a speed going on. So let's go and have a look at the needles. The main thing you're looking for with this aeroplane is if the needles start to diverge from each other. So during climb we were looking for a manifold pressure of 40. So we can give it a bit more welly, as the English would say. Obviously, the slower you run the propellers, the more stress it puts on the engines, which I know sounds counterintuitive, but it's true. Because, well, you're not really changing the speed of propeller, you're changing the pitch. So at a more coarse pitch, it's more torque required to spin the propellers at the same rate, if that makes sense. And we have someone joined us for the flight. So who might this be? Should we stick labels on? Yurgo, is that? Doing a bit of a wing waggle there to say hello. So coming up to 7,000 feet, if we are going to go to 10, we need to go and do this, don't we? To pressurize the cabin slightly. It's a minor amount if we're going to go to 10,000 feet. So, how are we doing on navigation? We could probably do with turning right a bit, so let me just keep an eye on the instruments here. So what we're going to do is keep an eye on, there's our direction of travel, there's the omni-bearing selector, so we want to turn right a bit. So we've commanded the aeroplane to rotate, and you can see the direction now is slowly rotating. And you can see there, that's the needle towards nav1, or the beacon tuned in on nav1. So if we can have that off the left side of our nose, then we'll track back towards the 70-degree radial. So then to cancel the turn, we press the silver button, and it just goes to wing leveling again. or not wing leveling, but maintaining the same direction. I'm not sure how close you have to be in terms of the instrument to be able to engage localizer mode. I think you have to go through a whole sequence of disengaging and re-engaging the autopilot, as far as I remember. So I'm just going to leave it in gyro pilot mode because it keeps it simple. And it gives us a nice mental exercise to do along the way. So yeah, we're going quite fast, I know we are, for anybody who knows this airplane well. But we're well within limits everywhere, so it's looking good. When we get to cruise, we will cut manifold pressure between 30 to 35, RPM down to between 2100 and 2300. So we're going to get to 10,000 feet soon, so we won't need although we're not really commercial traffic anyway, so we could go and turn those landing lights off. It's a gorgeous aeroplane, isn't it? And everything in it works properly. This is the great thing about the DC-6 from PMDG. As I said, I regard it as by far the best historic aeroplane in the sim. There's all sorts of stuff in the cockpit as well that you can go nosying around at. There's a hat down there, look, some books, some radio kit. I'm not sure if we can walk through in this version. So, we are slowly closing in on that radial. Not very quickly, but... So 9,500 feet, we're just coming through. When we get to 9,500, we'll level out and trim the aeroplane for cruise. I'm trying to remember what BMEP stands for. I can't, without looking it up, I can't remember off the top of my head. So, Lights is saying, how am I supposed to know where the airport is if there's bad weather and no VOR at the airport? Radio. You call the airport. Or you call, air traffic services and you ask for assistance and they will give you vectors. So, we're just coming up to 10,000 feet, so let's go and put altitude hold in now. So the airplane's going to level itself out and we can set for cruise. So we want manifold pressure of, well, we'll do the RPM first. So we want RPM of 2300 maximum. It's about there. And then manifold pressure of 30 to 35. So we just want to come off it a little bit. Oh, we were at 35 then, that's fine. We'll leave it. Notice you get variability, so one of the engines is chewing fuel a bit faster than the others. I didn't check fuel before we took off. Oh dear. Just checking around to see what the temperatures and pressures are looking like. The oil temperature is okay. It's within limits. So we got carb air is quite cold, but it is within the range you want it to be. Fuel pressure's good. Yeah, so we're looking okay actually across the board. Let's have a look through some of the instruments and see what we actually get in the cockpit then. So there's obviously a distance measuring equipment here. Got indicated airspeed, attitude indicator, altimeter. I think that's ADF, yeah. Oh, we're on the... I need to change direction slightly. Look, we're on the beam. So let's go and command a left turn to bring the aircraft round to 70 degrees. So 10 degrees back. So you can see the compass slowly rotating. What I'm also going to do is press D and see if that hasn't drifted. It's usually pretty accurate in this aeroplane. It's a bit higher quality than some of the earlier ones. And stop the turn. So we should now fly down that radial straight at the VOR. We've got 29 miles to run. 7 minutes. It's even given us a little calculation there, look. It's obviously been retrofitted because the original one in the 50s wouldn't have had that. What else do we get? So there's obviously in the middle of the compass you've also got the direction to the two beacons of Nav1 and Nav2. There's the ADF needles, or needle I should say. That's interesting that that's got 2 and that's got 1. Anyway, vertical speed indicator, beacon markers, or sorry, marker beacon lights, I should say. Let's say things the right way around, hey. And we've also got a gyro sim compass. Never seen one of those before. Notice it's backwards. Whereas this one is the... So it's interesting, isn't it? There's been different fashions over the decades of which way round. So binnacles are always backwards. This is backwards, and that's the right way round. I think the correct name for that would be a directional gyro, but there you go. I'm just having a little nose around to see... But the level of modelling in this aeroplane is just brilliant compared to when you think this was one of the first complicated aircraft that came out for the simulator, and it's still kind of the reference. So yes, someone's saying mixture Celine, I completely forgot that. So let's go and have a look at the mixture levers. So I'm on auto rich, which I think, I'm not sure if it's true of this aircraft, but it's it has auto lean below and you can hear it leaning it out slightly. I think auto rich is good up to 10,000 feet, isn't it? And then above that you have to start playing games. And obviously you've got carburetor air there as well, which you might have to play with depending on the weather and altitude. But I think we're looking fine at this altitude. Yeah, needles are pretty much where they should be. Hydraulic pressure, 16 miles to run. So overhead you can see you've got a load more dials. So you've got the fuel, obviously fuel quantity in the different tanks. So you've got the mains here and the alternate tanks there. So we've got tons of fuel. This thing can fly for thousands of miles. We're only doing 500. So what else have we got overhead that might be of interest? So obviously amperage, anti-icing fluid levels, hydraulic reservoir, water. Obviously because you've got water injection, so it carries water. So yeah, you can see here's the injectors. Oh, sorry, no, it's the fuel ignition selector. Sorry, where's the injectors? There's the superchargers. They're further up. I can never remember where everything is. There's dials everywhere. So cabin temperature, you've got manifold pressure, another manifold pressure gauge. Cabin differential pressure. It's very cool, isn't it? So carburetor de-ice, fire suppression. We could probably take the seatbelt sign off now, can't we? Let everybody go and have a wander about. And I get time to go and make a coffee. So we're just coming up to the VOR though, so I'll get us onto the next course. We're cutting down one side of it, which isn't a major problem. So remember, we're not on the map. We're over here somewhere, so we're off to the left slightly of the VOR. So we're here somewhere. What's the range on the next one? Right click, show information for Raipur. Did I say the runway then instead of, I wanted the VOR. 130 miles again, so we can go straight for it. 11610. So we'll go and tune in 11610. Switch it to active. We want to be flying 104 degrees towards it. So we'll change the omni-bearing selector to 104. We're pretty much, because we're a long way away, look, we're almost on the radial as far as it is concerned. So we just need to turn the aircraft round to 104 degrees. So we just turn the knob there, wait for the airplane to rotate, and we're on our way again. If we wanted to, we could use Nav2 to take bearings. If we had it, yeah, there's a VOR over here, look. So we could take bearings from it. It's probably on the limits of the range, though, to have an accurate enough reading. But you could play games with triangulation if you have enough beacons. But we can just fly from and to, we'll be fine. So coming through 80 degrees. Notice we have gone off to the left now of the track. So we'll just do the same as before. So the arrow is pointing straight towards the beacon. So we'll rotate until we're beyond the arrow, which will pull us back onto the course we wanted to be on. Have we got any non-directional beacons around anywhere? If I turn them on, off and on, it's often easier to see them. There's one here. Just to get the ADF working, so 230. Where was the ADF radio? How are we doing on course? We're just coming round to the VOR. Do I have to do anything other than that to get this to work? 230. Oh, we have to... There we go. And it's turning around, it's pointing behind us, obviously. Very good. So yeah, if you have enough beacons around, you can triangulate to approximate your position quite accurately. So we are now going to stop turning. Because we have overflown the course, so then the CDI should come straight back in. So we're over here somewhere, and we're flying back towards the track. We are 74 miles away from the beacon, so we could draw an arc on here if you wanted to. If we did like measure distance, we are that far out. We're somewhere, we're probably about there. So you can figure out where you are just by looking at the instruments and going by what you've got. What's the wind doing? This is the one concession we have got, is we're allowing ourselves to see the wind. But you could obviously derive what the wind's doing by watching the CDI and your course. So you could figure it out for yourself. So yeah, Paradisky is saying in the comments, that's something I said earlier, that you can obviously switch this over to use localizer mode. But the only reason I'm not is because this gives me something to do. Otherwise it would be very boring and we could just leave the aeroplane chugging along, following the radial all on its own. If we were to switch to it, the aeroplane would immediately bank right and then left to go and acquire the CDI. But I just like doing this sort of thing because it gives me something to occupy my mind on a longer trip. Otherwise we would seriously have very little to do. So as soon as this has got into the middle on the CDI, we'll align the nose with the beacon, and then we're good to go. And then I'll go and make a coffee. So what aeroplane should that be? Let's have a look. Oh, it's a Fuga Magister. Awesome. Obviously I'm not using, I don't have the Fuga Magister, so that's why I can't see it. So yeah, Paradisky in the live stream chat is saying playing with the fuel crossfeed is good fun. Yeah, it's trouble is with this aeroplane, if you have everything on realistic and all the damage switched on and everything, you eventually develop post-traumatic stress disorder watching the needles on long flights. Especially, this is half the reason you've got this thing in here, the automated flight engineer, and you can use him, you can switch it on for the phase of flight, and he gets on with looking after the aeroplane, but he often gets things wrong. If you really want to, once you know your way around everything, if you really want to know what you're doing and what or to know what you have done and what is happening to the aeroplane, it's better if you do it yourself, because he sometimes makes very poor decisions. So we are on the track now. So let's go and turn ourselves towards the course. And then just level ourselves out. There we go. So we're on the radial, flying straight towards the beacon. So we're just waiting 58 miles out. So we can now plot on the map exactly where we think we are. So if we go measure distance, 58 miles, wasn't it? We were exactly there. So we could put a user point on the map. We could put the time. So that's where we were at 2240. So we're kind of using LittleNavMap as a paper map at that point. It's quite good, isn't it? Right, I'm going to go make a coffee. I'll be back in a minute. I'll leave the aeroplane outside so you can see the world going by. Okay, I'm back. Let's go and check where we are. Oh, look, we've got some company up ahead of us. Another DC-6. Oh my word, they're out in force. So, how are we doing on the instruments? 37 miles to run, and how are we doing? We're exactly on the radial still, or just off to one side, but enough that we're not going to worry. How are the engines doing? Fuel flow's looking great, manifold pressure's looking good, RPM's looking good. The main thing I always look for immediately is, do the needles match? You'd be surprised. If you let, it's always a joke. We've always, for some reason, I think it was down to a guy called Horace, who's you may have seen him online. He nicknamed the artificial flight engineer Gary, and it stuck. So there's always jokes about, yeah, if you let Gary take over control of the aeroplane, good luck with your engines. There is an element of babysitting involved with this aeroplane. So we can also get in here, if you've not seen this plane before, there's the engine stress visualizer. So you can see that we're a bit cold on the carburetor temperature. So what we can do is go and turn it up a bit. So if we just turn it up to, say, 20%, and then we'll keep an eye on that over the next few minutes and see if it warms up. Cylinder head temperature, look, it's ticking. Cylinder head temperature is looking a bit cold on engine number 4 as well. But unless it's what it says, within icing range, so we're probably passing through weather now and again, which is causing that to trip. So it may settle down again. But as long as you don't get any catastrophic warnings, you're pretty good. So yeah, as Paradisky said, we could also solve that by closing down the cowl flaps. I don't know if I've got a note here for cruise about the... No, I've not got a setting for it. But you can obviously, you can tune the aeroplane throughout the flight to help. We could look at taking them right down to 0. If we go and look outside, it'll be obvious what we've done. So you'll now see they're nice and sleek. But it does mean that there's less air being encouraged past the engine. But we've now got all greens though. Having closed the cowl flaps, we may be able to switch the carburetor air back off. Let's see what happens. So a question mark means moderate stress range for the oil temperature. No, it's only a little bit above where it should be. I'm sure it'll be fine. We are shifting though, we're doing over 200 knots. So someone just said to drop the RPM, we're already at 2300 RPM. Again, the danger of doing this is if you know that you're within limits on the needles, yeah, so we do want carburetor temperature. If you know you're within limits on the needles, chasing those ticks can be a fool's errand. So you're best off not looking at them and just looking at the needles, because they are really just a dummy's guide of reading the needles. So you're better off just not looking. That's why we come over here and look at these and interpret them as the real crew would have done. And I think there's more interest in doing that. So you get to see, you know, you're looking to see if things are in the right kind of range, As long as they're not horrifically different than they should be, you're okay. But like I said, it's you babysit the DC-6. But yeah, it can almost do transatlantic. You could certainly, if you go Iceland, then was it Goose Bay or something like that over on the tip of Canada, or Newfoundland? You can do the smaller hops and get across the Atlantic. So we're 14 miles out from the next VOR, so we were tuned in to 11610, which was the Raipur. So if we mark 14 miles out, measure distance, or we don't have to mark it, it's just out of interest, isn't it? So measure distance. We're somewhere there. So our next leg flying away from here will be flying the 71 degree radial. So we don't have to change frequencies or anything to do this. We could just change the omni-bearing selector to the 71 degrees and fly from it in a moment. So if we just carry on the direction we were going, the CDI will sweep in. But it will do it very rapidly because we'll be right on top of the VOR, which isn't always good. So what we could do is just cut the corner and start turning now and go for like 80 degrees. So all we're doing is turning across here, and then we'll meet the from signal on the way out. So it's just coming up to 90 degrees. So this will flip round in a moment. So there's 80 degrees. So if we level out to 80 degrees, knowing that we want 70 eventually, which we've gone a bit too far there, haven't we? Let's go and correct that. Just push it gently back to 80 degrees. And stop. So then we just hold 80 degrees and wait for the CDI to come in, and then turn the rest of the way. It's pretty straightforward. Something that gets quite cool with the older aeroplanes, which you can't really do easily, but you can in a 737, strangely enough, is if you do, say if we drew a line between these airfields, so from Nagpur, say we did a straight line, what you could do is then measure distances from there to there, so you could figure out the bearings of the closest approach and fly the straight line, but don't go through any of the actual VORs. It's a much more difficult way to navigate, but obviously you can do it a little bit, you save a bit of fuel. How's that CDI doing? Is it coming in yet? Not quite. So we are from now. So we've gone past by 5 miles. We're still holding 80 degrees. I think that started to move. Or am I imagining it? I think I probably imagined it. So you can see, look, that's pointing at the VOR as it goes down the side of us. So So that probably won't sweep in until this is almost pointing directly behind us. You know, if you just think in terms of geometry. Let's go and have a look outside. Apparently we have company. That's funny. So we've got two DC-6s. Obviously I'm not rendering them as DC-6s, but very cool. So CDI hasn't quite come in yet. So we just keep half an eye on that. We're now 10 miles past. If we wanted it to happen more quickly, we could just turn to 90 degrees and intercept the course. But we're not in a hurry. So it's just out of interest then, let's get rid of that distance measurement because we don't want it to mess the map up. So we're somewhere here inside this corner. So we're 137 miles out to Jharsuguda. Is that how you say that? Could I turn up the instrument lights? Now there's a question because I'd need to find the light switch to do that and I'm going to have to go hunting for it. There are light switches all over this aeroplane and here we go, here's some of them. Radio backlighting, cockpit flood, cockpit temperature. That won't do the main lights though, will it? It's on the tablet. That's cheating. Here we go. There's a map light, Captain's Flight Instrument lights. That's the red light though. Hang on a second, I need to keep, oh here we go, here's the CDI coming. So we're going to prepare to turn to 71 degrees. So we'll turn left when it gets to the middle. So just to remember, this has got the course on it that we want. It's saying we are to the left of the radial at the moment, because we know we cut the corner. We are flying 80 degrees, so we'll turn left to 70 or 71. So just to illustrate that on the map, we are somewhere here, but we're on a course at 80 degrees and that's 70, so we're getting closer and closer to that course. So we'll turn left in a moment. We're 21 miles past the beacon, so we cut quite a chunk off the corner. Have a look on the range down here. So yeah, we're about over here somewhere then, and we're pretty close. So we cut off that whole corner from just the other side of Raipur. Getting closer and closer to the radial. So while we're waiting for that, let's have a quick look at the main instrument panel white lights. Here we go. Can we hold shift on? Yes, we can. It's brightened it up a little bit. Okay, so we are now almost on top of the needle, so let's start turning a couple of notches of rudder. And now in watching for the actual direction to come round to meet the course. So our heading to come round to the course. Okay, so let's stop the turn by pressing the silver button. And we're flying now away from the beacon we have just left. So we're 30 miles from it now. So we're about there. And we're going to... now I said the name of it earlier, didn't I? Jharsuguda 11260. So let's go and change frequencies now. So change that to active. DME's just switched over, 104 miles. And we are pretty much on the radial. So we've done quite well with that. Obviously we should be, because it's the same radial. Obviously we're leaving the other one on. We're just going to this one on the 71-degree radial. 250 knots nearly ground speed. That's not bad, is it? So we are at flight level 100, that's correct. I'm just looking for any weather on the way. So we're somewhere along this leg towards Jharsuguda. And we don't appear to have any weather in the way, so that's all looking good. I'm showing the cloud cover here in LittleNavMap, so if we were to pull this down, can we find out where that... yeah, so the cloud is about 8,000 feet, look. Which correlates with what we can see. There's bits and bobs of cloud. So 845 Sim is saying there that this is going to be good fun doing group flights with the Lancaster. Yeah, it will be, won't it? So everybody get in the air together. I imagine there'll be lots of group flights retracing the route taken by the various Lancaster missions. I will admit I've got mixed feelings about the Lancasters, oh sorry, about the Dambuster missions. we lost an awful lot of aircrew to damage several dams, which were rebuilt remarkably quickly. And the flooding caused by the dams that were destroyed killed many, many, many more civilians than was really... it's a difficult subject. It's a complicated subject. But yeah, for not a very tangible result, although it was obviously, what's the word? The stories that came out of it and the movies were heavily lent towards expressing a narrative that they wanted people to hear. So it was an awful lot of propaganda. Anyway, how are we doing? 84 miles to run, we're still on the radial. We're not wandering around too much, which is good. And the engines are looking okay. So I'm gonna, while this is running, I'm gonna go and remind myself what BMEP stands for. BMEP stands for Brake Mean Effective Pressure. It's a measure of the average pressure exerted on a piston during the power stroke of an internal combustion engine. In the context of the Douglas DC-6, BMEP is a crucial indicator of engine performance. It helps pilots and mechanics assess the overall health and efficiency of the engines. So there you go. Funny, isn't it? It's almost an instrument flight. So we've got 20 minutes until we get to the next VOR. And that'll be just past halfway, actually. We're just below 150 on the BMEP. So we could obviously push on a bit. If we just ease the power up a tiny bit, then we get them to 150. And you probably see as a result of that, the indicated airspeed needle is just creeping up. So while this is going on, I can't remember. I think you have to select in the tablet whether you have the back of the aircraft rendered. So yeah, there's those shortcuts for the lighting, by the way, but that's not really what I was interested in seeing. Options. So I've got damage switched off, so I don't know why I'm being so careful, because we could have it all on realistic. But it's good to see, you know, that obviously we wouldn't have damaged it anyway because we've been so careful. But it just shows you do have those options. Now, what I was actually looking for, this aircraft does have consumables as well, doesn't it? So if you look in the maintenance, yeah, you can see how many hours each engine has done. And how much oil it's got. I've forgotten what I came in here looking for now. Oh, whether we render the cabin or not. I think maybe it was an option, or maybe I'm thinking of a different aeroplane. Can we walk through the wall? No. So maybe if we go to the drone camera, I'll turn the drone camera speed down as well. I haven't got the Xbox controller plugged in, but we should be able to just fly into the body of the aircraft. Go back the other way. Yeah, there's no parts rendered that don't need to be, which is how they've achieved such good frame rates with it. They've been quite selective in what is high resolution and what isn't. Anyway, how are we doing? 60 miles to run. On our way to, let me get the name right, Jharsuguda. So we said we were 60 miles to run, didn't we? So we could do a measure using the measure distance from. We were there. So if we were to add a user point there and just put the time in, so 23:13. Although it's probably a minute ago, but it doesn't really matter. It's close enough. So Stuart's asking, is there a reason why I use LittleNavMap more than Navigraph? Yeah, it's better at some things than Navigraph is. You can't, there's no easy drawing tool in Navigraph where you can measure distances. So bizarrely, you can draw on the plates, but not on the map, I don't think. So, for example, if I pull up the plate here, I'm going to forget how this works. Oh yeah, you have to show it as a whole thing. Once you show a plate, you can draw on it. Yeah, whatever you want to do. But you can't do that on the map. And you can't measure distances at random lines and vectors that you want. And that's the major thing that LittleNavMap gives me, is the ability to do that. I mean, don't get me wrong, for an instrument flight with all the plates and SIDS and stars and the proper charts, Navigraph is, blows LittleNavMap out of the water. But for something like this, where it's just a concocted flight plan, where we haven't got SIDS or stars or anything. Although having said that, say if we wanted to come in here and use an approach, and we went show arrivals for the airport, and let's see what they look like. So there's 4 knot wind is, well, what's the wind on the ground here? It's 10 degrees, 8 knots. So it's coming in 8 knots from the north. So we probably want to land runway 01. So what do the stars look like for 01? Remember, we're only at 10,000 feet. So we could have a look at that one. But yeah, so this gives you a very simplified view of a star, for example. So we've got this one, JJS2H. But obviously, this is where Navigraph stretches its legs over LittleNavMap. Is because, yeah, we can go and say we want to come in runway 01 left, for example. And we can get rid of that, that last VOR. And we can say the standard terminal arrival route was this one, wasn't it? We can add that to our route. But as soon as we do that, we get the chart for it, obviously. And we can actually see the real chart, which gives us the restrictions written in the Jefferson way. Let's call it that. But so we don't have a restriction then until we get down to almost on top of the airport. And then you've got, obviously, yeah, you've got vectors here, look, before you come in, which is interesting in itself. Let's go and close that. Close that. So yeah, this ends up flying away from the airfield with vectors, and then you would wait for instruction to turn back in. So we would then go and choose like the 01 left ILS. That's interesting, look what that's done. Did I select the... Oh, I selected the wrong one. I'm an idiot, aren't I? Runway, remove. Sorry. Remove that one. Remove that. Select 01 left. So it's the... Oh yeah, that was 19. So it's only a VOR DME, but that's fine. So what could we do? Let's go and have a look at those. Remove that. Select. If we're coming out to there, ideally we would want that one, wouldn't we? There it is. So yeah, obviously this is where the likes of Navigraph is brilliant, because suddenly you've got the actual chart of the approach. And it gives you the, you know, the step descent and everything else and all the notes, which obviously you don't get that in LittleNavMap. You do kind of though, in that you can show it in a tabular format if you wish to. So we could go, for example, which one was it? That one, wasn't it? Oh, I never actually put the star in. That was clever of me, wasn't it? What was the star? JJS2H. Oh no, that's the arrival, sorry. Yes, JJS2H. There it is. And it was the CC... Oh, that is just that one, yeah. So insert that. So yeah, you still get, if you show the correct columns in LittleNavMap, you still get enough information to see exactly what's going on in terms of restrictions. So you can still read it, it's just not in the way that a real crew would have the information. So they would obviously have some charts potentially to go on. And to be honest, they might have the the Simbrief, an operational flight plan. So how are we doing, by the way? Oh, we've wandered off a little bit, look, while we were busy talking. So let's go and have a look. We're 27 miles out. We've wandered off slightly to the left of the track, so we'll just turn across the track slightly. To pull ourselves back onto the course. So we'll leave that going. So yeah, obviously the other thing we can do, which I've not done here, is if we go and open a browser and go to Simbrief. So I copied the flight plan before we left Navigraph behind. If we go and create a new flight, for example, I'm just going to paste this up here so I can see it. So we were departing Van P, arriving at VECC, and we're using the DC-6. Is it even in here? Does anybody know the ICAO code for the Douglas DC-6? C11. It is just DC-6. I did wonder if it would be in here or not. Oh, there it is. So there's the projected route, but we can change that to the route that we're actually flying. So it's saying that is invalid for one right, so we'll go for one left. Oh, that's because they've chosen one right there. No. So that route is valid. So we could then generate the flight. And that will obviously give us an operational flight plan. So there's the routing. And so yeah, I find myself looking at these operational flight plans more than I do at LittleNavMap, to be honest, when I'm doing a group flight, for example. I'm trying to kind of force myself to use the information that the real crew would have. So that, you've got your block fuel estimates there. You've got your from and to, you've got the cost index if you're in a big aeroplane. Obviously this doesn't have that. You've got your flight level they want you to fly at, which we're not doing. It wants us to go up to 13,000. But yeah, I really like this, and reading the flight log chart as well is interesting to me. Interpreting the numbers. Anyway, how are we doing? We're not coming back onto this very quickly, are we? Let's go and turn a bit more left. So 11 miles to run. So we're going to cut across a little bit steeper angle. So when we leave Jasaguda, we want to be leaving on 65 degrees to carry on to the next waypoint, which was JJS. See, now I haven't got the GPS in the aeroplane. Can we plug it in? Because we've proven we can do this. It's just, oh hello, is the sim just frozen? Yeah, it has. Give it a second. There we go. trying to remember how, or do you have to choose a specific version of the aeroplane to get the GPS? Oh no, there it is. So we can plug in a GNS 430 if we want one. No, let's go without it. We don't need it, do we? So let's simplify this. So if we backtrack what we programmed. So we're 5 miles out, we're almost on the radial. So if we start turning left again, we want to be travelling 65 degrees. So we're just bringing it round now. Let's do it a bit more sharply. So there's 65 degrees on the nose. And if we change the omni-bearing selector now to 65 as we leave, so it's about to go, this will swing around, the VOR is going to go down the right hand side of the aeroplane. What if we can see it on the ground? Where is it? On the end of the runway. Somewhere down there. It's not in high resolution, is it? Oh, it's off the end of the runway, sorry. So it's probably that there. Looking at the wear on the dirt. Or it could be there. It's difficult to tell, isn't it? It's a new hobby, spotting VORs from altitude. So Nev Haycox has almost completed a circumnavigation of the globe. Fantastic. So yeah, I'm trying to do the same thing bit by bit as I get time to do these flights, and using all sorts of airplanes to do it. So you can see the CDI is slowly coming back in as we track towards the next beacon. So if we then go, notice, although we've turned the aeroplane off, the legs are changing colour as we are on them. You just noticed that. 11540 to go to the next beacon. So up here is 11540 and switch that to active. You can see we're almost on the radial to go 65 degrees towards it. So we just need to go a little bit to the right, although we are already really. If we just turn a couple of notches, turn the aeroplane a couple of degrees to the right, you see that happening, and stop the turn. And we'll just pull that needle into the middle and then correct it back again in a moment. So we've got 120 miles to run into Jamshedpur. So we haven't really looked outside much on the way, have we? Should we go and admire some of this scenery? Look at the fields everywhere and the plots of land. It's amazing, isn't it? rock formation over there. Can we find that on the map? So we should be able to figure that out, shouldn't we? There it is. Yeah, so Simon was just mentioning one of those other differences with LittleNavMap. A trick it has up its sleeve is you can pull up the elevation of the ground below the aeroplane, which is quite useful. But it's interesting where I kind of think of Navigraph as being a professional tool for doing IFR flights. I often think of LittleNavMap more as a sketch pad for VFR. Right, let's go and have a check of the engine instruments. We haven't looked for a while, just to make sure everything's okay. So needles are looking okay. They're okay. Right overhead. I've hardly dented the fuel. It's crazy, isn't it? This thing can fly for so far. So 105 miles to run until the next VOR, and we're almost on the radial. So we're a couple of degrees to the right. I wonder... Ah, there you go, look. So that's the reason we're holding it. There's a 3-knot crosswind, which is just enough that those couple of degrees to the right that we're flying is holding us on the radial. That explains it. Like, remember I said earlier, if you what you observe on the instruments, you can figure out what the wind is doing if you're accurate enough. Obviously, if you've got a tailwind or a headwind, you can only judge that based on timing and speed, and you know, keeping a consistent speed. So you can look at your indicated airspeed and you can figure out, based on passing landmarks at a known distance, you can figure out if you've got a headwind or a tailwind. Something I would love to do in the simulator, and I know it's kind of a bit of a deep dive, is learn how to use a sextant, or an astrolabe, I guess you should say, to read star positions. But also a sextant would be good as well, to read the position of the sun or the moon. But it would be really, it would be like the icing on the cake, wouldn't it? To be able to do like a transatlantic flight and chart your position by reading star positions. I don't know if you ever noticed this, but you know that the 737s have got quarter windows up here? That's what they were for. So I'm amazed this hasn't, to be honest. Quite often aeroplanes of this era have got quarter windows up in the ceiling, and they are for taking measurements of the sky. Should we put the camera up in the corner of the cockpit so we can watch everything going on? Oops, I've managed to go and jam the camera up. We can't get to anything. Typical. If we do that, then we get to see ourselves en route. We can still see the nav instrument down here in the co-pilot seat. Aha, someone's saying there's a window above the cabin door. Ah, there you go. Yeah, so that would be there for taking measurements if you needed to, I guess. Oh, the rumble of the engines is making me sleepy. .86 miles to run. I think the weather's slowly clearing the further we go to the east, isn't it? So where is this place we're flying over? 80 miles out, so it's going to be, is it? Somewhere around here. What was the distance measuring equipment saying again? 83 miles out. Nagar. So the notifications you're seeing popping up now and again from Ko-fi, I've got a shop on the internet where you can buy procedures. So for example, I can show you this while we're flying along because we've got some time. If I go to kofi.com/John Beckett and go in the shop, you will notice, you'll see that I've just done the Red Wing procedure for the Lockheed Super Constellation, but if we put in DC-6 in the search, this is the procedure that I've been following. If I go and show you the original, and I go into here and type in DC-6, so this is the original Google Doc. So when I was going through the checklist to start the airplane up, I was following this. It tells me what key to press, where to look, and what to switch. And it goes all the way through everything. So starting the engines, for example. So engine selector, main fuel boost pumps, start and ignition switches, the main fuel boost pumps again, and so on and so forth. Engine run-up test, so it tells you everything to do. And I've done that for numerous aeroplanes. I originally wrote them all for my own use, and then made them available to everybody. And I basically put a small charge on them because the amount of hours I spend on them is just getting to be a little bit silly. But yeah, so that's the links you're seeing pop up in the live stream chat. So I've basically done that for all of the complicated aeroplanes, or most of them. In some cases I have to create custom views, and I detail what views I've made at the start of the checklist to help you do it. I've just noticed they got a rotating beacon on the tail. That's really nicely done, isn't it? Very cool. I'm actually charting this flight on Volanta as well while we are flying. Oh, that's going to give away where we are though, isn't it? Hadn't thought about that. Oh well. So you can see there we are racing along, and we've got the weather showing as well. Let's turn the weather off. Should we put the satellite mapping on? So we're on our way. We knew we were on this route anyway, so let's go and minimize that for the moment. Okay. Exactly on the radial, which might mean the wind has changed slightly. Yeah, it's dropped to 3 knots, so we've shifted ever so slightly. So once we get to Jamshedpur, we're going to turn towards Kolkata at last. And I think we'll just fly overhead the airfield and then fly a circuit and come in manually. It's not going to be too difficult. And obviously we can tune in the ILS in case the weather is a bit rubbish at Kolkata, or there's a lot of smog maybe. But I can't see there being too many problems. I'm saying look at that. But that's only like 50 miles ahead. We've got a little way to go yet. So we're on the radial. 60 miles to run to the next waypoint, and then the final leg will be 120 miles into Kolkata. So while we're en route, I'm going to go and grab a refill of my coffee cup, so I'll be back in a bit. Just before I do go, PF Jim 5 is saying, is Jonathan playing with realistic engine damage? I've actually got the damage switched off. I didn't realise, but we've actually been babysitting the engines with kid gloves all the way anyway. So we've been following the book numbers. So yeah, you can see we've got the damage switched off, but it doesn't really matter because it would still have applied, you know, you would have seen the warnings coming up. But we've been book numbers all the way. Anyway, right, coffee time. Back in a few minutes. Okay, I'm back. How are we doing? 43 miles to run, we're still on the radial. How are the engines doing? All the needles are together, which is your first indicator. Sit and watch the world go by for a little while. The amazing thing about this aeroplane is how accurately, look at this, the nuts and bolts. And the crazy thing is, it's still probably the smoothest aeroplane in the sim. How did they do it? The only thing you can surmise, and this is coming from with my software developer hat on, is the developers at PMDG put an awful lot more work into optimizing their code than anybody else has. And okay, yeah, you can see there are shortcuts here and there where they've been crafty in using lower resolution textures. But beyond that, it is just so smooth when it's rendering so much. So Shane's asking, can I show what you get with the procedures? I just showed you one a minute ago. If you missed it on the live stream, I'll go back in and show you one again. I'll show you the DC-6 one. So DC-6, for example, here's the actual procedure. So you get version updates, you know, if there's been any changes recently. It tells you the key combination to go to a place in the cockpit, tells you where to look and what to do, and it goes through each phase of doing things. So starting the engines, engine control levers, mixtures to idle, and so on and so forth. So let's pull up a different one. Let's pull up one that a lot of people know. So maybe the good one, Antonov, the Maria. This one is a bit of a different story. It runs to 12 pages. I've had to put screenshots in to illustrate what to do, because obviously you can't understand any of it. So yeah, that's a special case, the Maria. Another one would be the Airbus A321 that's just come out from Phoenix, for example. It goes through the whole thing, what to do in quite a lot of detail. So this is a full run through of programming the flight management computer, every button click. How to do it with Simbrief. After programming the flight, so then it goes into the normal prepare for pushback and start, so signs, electrics, tablet, pushback, start engines, and it goes on and on. And then there's a load of reminders usually at the end about just things to prompt your memory. So yeah, that's what they look like, the procedures. They're only a couple of pounds each, so what are you waiting for? As I said earlier, I wrote the procedures originally for myself, just to give myself crib sheets, and then someone said you should share these with the community, and then for a while I gave them away, but then my other half turned around and said, you are spending so many hours at this, you should at least ask for the price of a cup of tea or coffee or something. So that's what I ended up doing. Isn't it funny? It's always our other halves that have the commercial head. I do this for fun, to be honest. But the money I make from that allows me to buy aeroplanes. So that's why I'm able to cover so many of the different aeroplanes that come out for the sim, and obviously support the developers in buying the aeroplanes. We're just drifting off to the side of the radial, so I'm just going to bring the nose across the direction to the beacon. 23 miles to run. Straighten myself up. I've also done procedures for things like the Cessna, which sounds like a bit of an odd one to choose. But if I go and find it, 172. There's nice things in here for people that are student pilots, I guess. Doing things like the engine run-up check. And doing, you know, final checks, and it's amazing actually when you dig into it. The 172 in Flight Sim is actually really well done. Like all the standby battery tests and everything all work, and you can check the voltages and all the rest of it. It's remarkable actually. It's an airplane everybody skims over and think, oh, it's a rubbish, you know, it's included for free, but it's not. It's really good, and the flight model in it is fantastic as well. But yeah, you can see there. So I've covered some of the GA planes that have got good functionality as well. Covered most of the Coronados. Covered most of the Just Flight planes. Have I done it for the B2 yet? I don't know that I have. But there's not a lot to the B2 though, is there really? Let's just go and have a quick look. So if I go back to Google Drive again, B2. No, but I have got the user manual saved for it. So I've not written it up. So PF Gen 5, apologies if we already addressed this. In the Garmin GPS, I'm not actually using the Garmin GPS today, I'm just doing this as a manual flight just for the fun of it. But your question is a valid one though. Is there a way to upload a LittleNavMap or Simbrief flight plan into the Garmin? I'm not sure on the 430. There's an easy way of answering this. I don't know if anybody else does this these days. I know people are very anti-AI, but it's read all the books. Can you load Simbrief flight plans into the Garmin 430 in Microsoft Flight Simulator? Yes. Menu, flight plans, import. Oh, that's using the world map screen. Oh no, it's not. It's not. You press the menu button, flight plans, import, use the rotary encoder to navigate to the location where the saved... Okay, that's just using the saved file. So you can't do it directly from Simbrief, you have to export it to your file system first. The 172 has autopilot, the 152 doesn't. There's two versions of the 172 as well. There's a glass cockpit version that has the G1000 in it, and that's the one you get with the basic version of Flight Sim. There's also a 172 Classic which has steam gauges, which comes with the premium version of Flight Sim. We have gone slightly off track here. We're 5 miles away, but we're not going to be too precious about that. So we're somewhere near, within 5 miles of Jamshedpur. So we're going to turn 94 degrees. So yeah, we're almost on top of it. Look, we're 4 miles away. It's going, the beacon is over there somewhere. So the beacon's on the end of a runway. Is that it under the cloud? Oh, there's the wrong way, sorry. So the beacon is there. And again, it's underneath that cloud. Isn't it Sod's law that as soon as you want to see anything, there's a cloud in the way? Beacon's there. So we can change direction now and go on for our last leg, 94 degrees. So let's go and change the omni-bearing selector first to 94. And then get the airplane turning. And we could change frequency if we wanted to the final VOR, which is almost on top of the airfield we're going to. So we want 11250. So there we go. So as soon as we have gone past the angle by a little bit, we'll just center the steering up. We'll intercept the CDI needle on the 94 degree radial and then straighten up. 121 miles to run. Yeah, so if you're wondering what airplanes I have covered with procedures, if you just go to, there's two ways you can find out. Either go to ko-fi.com/JohnBeckett and go in the shop, and you can scroll through them, or you can go to johnbeckett.substack.com, which is my airplane blog, and listed in here, and I haven't actually put the Red Wing one in the list yet. There is a list of procedures and guides in here, and it lists them all out. But it's exactly the same as looking through the ones in the shop, to be honest. There's some odd ones in here as well, so I've written a guide to everything in the G1000 for, you know, programming flight plans. A guide to the 737 FMC. A quick reference guide to doing all kinds of things in the FMC. Yeah, anything that's complicated I've tended to have written a guide for. Vulcan, there's two versions. The simplified one's the better one, probably. Yeah, all sorts of stuff. So, Lights is asking, which 172 do I prefer? Probably the classic one. I much prefer gauges over glass screens. I don't know why, I just do. So you can see the CDI is slowly coming in, because the reason it's coming in, look, we are flying about 90 or 102 degrees even. So we're crossing the track, so the CDI is slowly coming back into the middle. So just to illustrate where we are, we came around this corner late, so we're over this side somewhere of the track, but we're flying that angle, yeah? So we're coming towards the line, which is why the CDI is slowly moving in to the middle. If we don't have any hills on the way, which we don't, I'm inclined to go and take us down to 5,000 feet for the last bit of the journey. Although, what is the actual ground altitude? Oh, it's almost down to sea level. Obviously, it will be at Kolkata, won't it? Because it's a port. Should we take ourselves down to 5,000 feet? So to do that, we disengage the altitude hold, and then we can use the pitch control. If we just do it slowly, so 700 feet a minute, so it shouldn't accelerate too fast. I mean, this thing can fly at, what, 260 knots before you start to get into trouble. So we're just slowly descending back down. So we've got 100 miles to run. This will probably make a few of you laugh. I did a group flight with MyAir. Was it this week? Yeah, earlier this week. And they were all flying. They all tend to fly the big commercial airliners, so they do a group flight from A to B somewhere in the world. And I flew the stealth bomber. But it was a good navigation exercise because I programmed it all in and flew a SID and a star accurately with the stealth bomber. That was good fun. It's actually, its performance is very similar to commercial airliners. Okay, down to 9,000 feet. Should we put the head tracking on? We haven't used it at all yet, have we? Should we have a look out the other window? Just easing the BMEP back down. Okay, we're on the radial. We've actually gone too far now. So let's go back the other way. So just watching this rotate until we are back the other side of the needle. And then stop it from rotating any further, and it should edge us back towards the needle. So down to 8,000 feet and continuing to descend. The B2 maxed out, or the one in the sim maxes out at Mach 0.93. So the likes of the 727 is surprisingly one of the fastest commercial jets in the simulator. I think it can get close to Mach 0.94, 95. 737s and A320s tend to be Mach 0.7879 usually. You can push them up into the low 0.8, oh sorry, 0.8384 if you're pushing them. The 747 is very fast. I think it can go into, yeah, Mach 0.9345. Obviously it's probably not advisable, but it can do it. How are we doing on distance? 80 miles to run. What's going on here? Strips of land. I wonder where the cloud base is. We're going to be in the cloud, aren't we? Maybe we'll stop descending. We're just coming down to 7,000. We'll continue on down. If the ground is at, say, 1,000 feet, is it? No, it's not even that. It's at 500 feet-ish until we get closer. So yeah, 5,000 will be fine, and hopefully that will dip down through the bottom of this cloud. Or not, but then again, maybe it will clear up in another 50 miles or so. I mean, we really don't mind, even if the visibility is very poor at the destination, we don't mind because we've got a working radio, we've got a nav instrument, we can land on ILS, no trouble at all. It would just be a shame not to see Kolkata if it is completely smogged in. So Paul Arrowsmith says late night flying, yep. Again. It's only just gone midnight, it's not too bad. We're going to be at the destination in about another, 20 minutes. Although we have to sort out doing an approach. Yeah, so a little way to go. So coming down through 6,500 feet. That BMEP has crept back up again, hasn't it, as we're descending. We're going obviously into the thicker air. So also then we should have gone and changed the mixtures to auto rich below 10,000 feet. I think that's the book numbers for that would support doing that. And because we're getting that bit lower, we probably don't need the carb heating on anymore because we're not in the cold air at altitude. But we'll keep an eye on the temperatures and pressures. Yeah, look, that's suddenly shot up and it's coming back down gently. So down through 6,000 feet. 65 miles to run, 15 minutes out on the radial. So now we're getting a bit lower. I'm going to start opening the cowl flaps again. Five and a half thousand feet. So we'll stop descending at 5. We are absolutely shifting though. Look at the airspeed. That's right at the top end. And look at the BMEP. So obviously getting down into that thicker air. So the manifold pressure is shooting up with the denser air. Okay, here comes 5,000 feet, so we'll get ready to engage. Well, we can lessen the descent rate by rolling the pitch knob, and there you can see there's the climb rate is winding off. So we'll just creep down to 5,000 and then re-engage altitude hold on the gyro pilot. I'd forgotten how much fun the DC-6 is to fly. Obviously you can make life a lot easier for yourself with some of the automations. And with obviously with the GPS unit, but where's the fun in that? There we go, so altitude hold on. So in descent, we're looking for manifold pressure of, although we've already descended, we should have really gone a lot less manifold pressure, and we could have gone for 2200 RPM. So a little bit slower RPM than we're using, which is obviously why we got so fast, even though it's such a gentle descent. So getting closer to the runway. We'll be looking to speed the propellers back up a bit, so up to say 2400, 2400. So yeah, they're in the bright ballpark already, and open out the cowl flaps a bit further when we get closer, and get tuned into the ILS as well. So we can get the frequency ready on the ILS. So we are 48 miles out. So if we go and draw a line, back up the track, if we add a user point here, that's where we are. Whoops. Yeah, so I've turned the airplane off on purpose if anyone's seeing this that's joined late. So we're navigating by our own wits by using instruments and marking it on the map of where we were at particular times. So you can see along the way we've taken a few readings along the radials. So we're about 10 minutes out, 12 minutes out at current speed. So yeah, actually, good point about the seatbelt comment there. We put the seatbelt sign off earlier, didn't we? Let's put it back on. Get everybody to go and sit down. So we were going to go and tune in the ILS as a crosswind, so we could go for any runway we like. I'm inclined to fly past and do, I don't know, what should we do? We'll go for 01, shall we? 01 left, it's closer to the exits. Although that doesn't have ILS, does it? 01 right does. So we want 109.9 and 7 degrees on the omni-bearing selector when we get close enough. So let's at least get this into the other frequency. So 109.9. And we'll switch over to it when we're ready to do so. And we said, was it 7 degrees? So we'll spin the omni-bearing selector around to 7 degrees when we're in the pattern around the airfield. Although it's not really going to be a pattern, we're just going to extend downwind and then turn into the ILS beacon. The weather isn't looking great, is it? So we'll be thankful for ILS, I think. So 38 miles to run, 10 minutes out. So what happened to the complimentary peanuts? So we're below 10,000 feet, although we're not operating by commercial rules. So if we were, we would have the landing lights out. We'll need to get the speed under control, but we'll wait until we're a bit closer. We'll do that in the as we extend downwind. "30 miles out." Still on the radial. Judged that quite well, haven't we? If we just a couple of degrees to the left. "8 minutes to run until the VOR, and then we should have visuals before that. Although, depending on what we can see outside, we may not have much in the way of visuals at all. So let's get some numbers in our head before we get going. So 187 degrees downwind. So we'll be looking to fly that sort of direction. This is where LittleNavMap comes into its own. So at the moment we're 28 miles out. So we're probably, let's have a look, measure 28 miles. We're there. Flying down this radial into the VOR. Then when we get over the top of it, we'll turn right to 187 degrees, quite a steep turn. And then we'll lose the speed, and then we'll do a U-turn. We'll tune into ILS, and it should be fairly straightforward. It is clearing up a little bit, so I'm not so worried. 25 miles to run. So we're going to start descending again. So take the altitude hold off. And a couple of notches down. And you can see the vertical speed increase there down to 500 feet a minute. So if we take ourselves down to 3,000 feet, that will suit the ILS. Ideally, if it's is it a 3-degree ILS? Does it tell us there? Yes, glide slope 3 degrees. So 8 miles out is going to be 2,500 feet above the runway. Five minutes out from the VOR. 19 miles to run. Have I been tracking this in Volanta? Yes, I have. But we're not looking at it because that gives away where we are. So we've turned off our position on purpose in both Navigraph and don't worry about the routing because we're not really using it. We were just talking on the way about SIDS and stars. We're straight lining it between the VOR. Obviously if we'd had GPS we could have flown a star, but we don't, so we're not. We could have picked a star using a DME arc or something and then flown that manually. So down to 4,000 feet and descending still. So let's come off the power a bit more. $15 miles to run. It's quite misty, isn't it? We are going to be glad of having the GPS, the ILS. And we are starting to drift off of the ILS. The radial. I'm getting tired, aren't I? Mistakes are going to be made. So I'm just pulling the nose the other side of the direction of the beacon to pull us back onto the... Of course, that could be wind. It could be surface wind that's coming into play, pushing us around. So we're 10 miles out. Need to turn a bit. It could be a little bit of wind that's going on. Okay, so I'm just countering the direction to the beacon to pull us back onto the course on the CDI. So 8.5 miles. 2 minutes out. And we're coming down to 3,000 feet, so we'll be going on to altitude hold again in a moment. And oh my word, we're going to have a low visibility landing by the look of it. Is this the smog that it's simulating in Kolkata? So this is going to be an interesting approach then. So we may extend further downwind after going over the VOR. So we'll hold at 3,000. So just watching the altitude there. and start to lose some airspeed. So 4 miles out, we're slightly to the right of the radial, but that's my own doing. But we can fix that fairly quickly. So we're coming in just about 85 degrees, 90 degrees-ish. Coming back towards the radial, 2 miles away from it. So we're almost dead over the VOR. When we pass over the top, we're going to turn right. So let's go and look at LittleNavMap. So when we pass over the top, we're going to turn right to 185 degrees-ish. It's not an exact science. So we're a mile out. We'll lose signal at some point and lose the DME. So look, you can see that we're just about to go past the VOR. The CDI needle is shot past. And have we got a from signal yet? Yes, we do. So we're going to turn right. Lovely weather. So you can see there's the direction. It was 187, wasn't it, the actual number we want, but we can go in the neighbourhood. Will be enough. So let me slow down. So we're going downwind now. Let's go and change the Omni bearing selector. We've got the ILS pre-programmed. We'll switch over to it now, 109.9. And we want the bearing, the Omni bearing selector to be on 7 degrees. So let's go and get that tuned in for the runway approach. Obviously we're going the opposite direction than it at the moment, so that's about there. The glide slope is alive, even though we're nowhere near it. So we're flying down this side of the runway, and we can watch the distance. You will notice when we get a bit further away that the glide slope will sweep up. Ideally we want to go past the glide slope before we turn in. And we probably turned too far there. Let's go give ourselves a wider circle. So we'll turn more towards 180. Are we losing speed? Slowly. So we could drop down to 2,500 feet. So if we go and do this and that, and drop the power even further. And we'll also go and open up the cowl flaps further to 4 degrees. So altitude is coming off. You can see there's the glide slope coming up, look. Which means we're probably about 8 miles out. There we go, 8 miles, look, on the button, which is what I predicted. 3 degree glide slope, 2,500 feet is 8 miles, usually, or in that ballpark. So then we'll stop the descent at 2,500 feet. So we're now below the glide slope. So if we do a we've slowed down a bit, so the turn radius will be tighter as well. So if we go and do a U-turn now, fairly steep turn. We can look at increasing the RPM of the engines a bit now, up to 2400. So we're just bringing this round to 7 degrees basically. And if we don't get anywhere near, so we're off to the left, which means we can intercept. So what we'll do is straighten up before we get there. So we're giving ourselves about a 20-degree intercept. Here comes the glide slope, so we're approaching, what, 9.5 miles out at the moment. I'm hoping we'll get the localizer fairly soon. Let's go at a sharper angle into it. So I'm going to get ready to turn the autopilot off as well. Here comes the localizer. So we could do this, couldn't we? So let's just turn then towards 0. It's going to take too long, isn't it? So let's go and turn this off now. So we release the clutch for the autopilot, turn the gyropilot off, and we are now flying the aeroplane. We're down to 1,500 feet. What on earth was this thing doing? Oh, we're going a bit slow, that's all. Okay, so we got into a corner there. While we were busy concentrating on that, the aeroplane got too slow, and the autopilot did what it does and tried to mush us into the floor. So I'm just climbing us back up onto the glide slope. Get the gear down. So let's go and turn left, get back on the glide slope. On the localizer, I mean. Yeah, so that went a bit south there for a moment, but we can recover it. And the autopilot has trimmed the nose massively up where we lost speed. So it would have kept doing that until it crashed the aeroplane. They were coming back in, look. So we're back on the localizer. The passengers are probably feeling a bit queasy by now. Okay, so we're off to the left and we're a little bit high, so let's just pull that down. We're off to the right. We're now, the trim is massively out because of that problem with the autopilot. I'm having to retrim the aeroplane basically. And we're far too fast. We may have to go round, you know, and just do it manually. Doesn't help that the view is quite poor. And the Sims, oh, I thought it was frozen then for a moment. We're off to the left. There's the runway, I think, just in front of us now. We're a little bit high and a little bit to the left. And the view isn't helping, that it's off to one side. I thought we might have to go around there, but we've recovered it okay. So yeah, that autopilot nearly got us into a lot of trouble then. Which just goes to show it's better to hand fly than rely on old autopilots from 50 or 70 years ago. Welcome to a very smoggy Kolkata. So now we're slowing down, we need to go and open those cowl flaps up all the way. Whoa. I should have put the head tracking on, shouldn't I? It would have been a lot easier. It just goes to show though, doesn't it, with the problems we had with the autopilot there for a few moments and focusing on one thing and not another, and me being tired because it's what, almost coming towards 1 o'clock in the morning, just shows how much saturation can affect you. I've got a book on the shelf behind me about the human limits with aviation, and this is one of the subjects that comes up in there, is about how tiredness affects you, and it's, you know, it's a known and studied thing. Parking brake on. Okay, so we can kill the engines just by killing the mixture. He says famous last words. Landing lights can go back off. And everything we switched on earlier can go back off, so the mags can come off. Turn everything in the aeroplane back off again. I'm not doing this in the correct order, of course, but I'm just tired now. So we're doing whatever needs to be done. That was all switched off already. They need to come back. Oh. The gust lock needs to go back in place. Flaps are already up. I think we're good to go. So there we go. The DC-6 probably, well, it's by far the best aircraft of its type in the simulator. You know, these historic long-range aircraft. It will give you nightmares, as you just saw on approach, so you can't trust the avionics suite to do things for you. You end up having to hand fly it to get yourself out of trouble. Especially if you're tired. So let's go and have a look at that. That's going to look quite funny on the plot, isn't it? So if we go and show the plot now, that was where we got into trouble, look. And we went off, while fixing the altitude, we went off to the right and then got it back on track. And then we were more or less there by the time we were a couple of miles out. That was the point where we turned away because we were aware we were on too shallow of an angle to make the turn. But then we made we slowed down enough. Look how much the difference of the radius of the turn was. So along the way, you can see where we were overshooting and crisscrossing the track. So if we see that on Volanta, if we go and zoom out, review the flight. So our landing, we can go and have a look at. Look, here it is. 285 feet a minute. So it wasn't the smoothest landing, but it wasn't terrible either. I'll take it. And obviously you can see us against the route if I turn the satellite off again. So we were at 10,000 feet most of the way, weren't we? It's very cool, isn't it, being able to do this? Right, someone wants to be a friend on Volanta. Of course, I'll accept that. I always do. Close down Volanta, close down LittleNavMap, and we live to fly another day. I'm going to go and collapse into bed. Thanks ever so much for watching. I'm just going to post this out to the blog. So if you've not subscribed to the blog, it lives at johnbeckett.substack.com. And yeah, I'll put a post in here so you can subscribe by email for free. And then it means whenever I post anything, I always post the videos that I've done and the live streams afterwards. So you'll get an email with a link to the video. Also, if I do any documentation, like you can see I did that startup for the Red Wing Lockheed Super Constellation earlier, you get an email whenever I put one of those out. And the other day, just for a bit of fun, I built a model aeroplane kit for the first time in about 40-odd years. So I documented it, which was good fun. I've ended up with a plastic model kit of an A320 and I don't know what I'm going to do with it. Anyway, there's the blog. So I'm just going to go and do that now. Thanks for watching and see you again soon. Take care. Bye.